Welcome everyone. This is our Global Wellbeing webinar, and today we're going to be talking all about anxiety. And today we'll be here from 7 till 8 o'clock. So you will be able to turn yourselves off mute, and also you'll be able to, we can see you guys if you want to as well. Today it will all be in English. We will try and answer any questions, but we can also come back to you after the session if we're not able to answer any of those. It will be recorded today so that we can upload the session to the website for anyone who hasn't been able to make it, which is always a really good resource for yourselves afterwards as well. So who's with you today? So you've got myself, I'm Catherine Lewis, I'm ASUK Operations Manager at Alström Syndrome UK. I've been with the charity for about 15 years now. And we've got Melissa, who's our ASUK Wellbeing Coordinator, and she supports many of our families in the UK with Alström Syndrome. So today we are welcoming all about anxiety, and we're going to be talking all about it. Melissa's going to take us through a deep dive into understanding more about anxiety. And this is going to be a really safe place for you to be able to talk about your feelings. And it is a safe space for you all to have your viewpoints heard, listened to and respected, and a real time to develop a real better understanding. And towards the end we will be looking at some relaxation techniques with Melissa, which will be lovely. So I'm going to pass over now to Melissa, who's going to talk you through the session.
Brilliant. Thanks, Catherine, and good evening to everyone who's here today. It's lovely to be here with you tonight. So yes, what are we going to cover in today's session? We're going to, as Catherine said, take a deep dive into what anxiety is. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll understand about different kinds of anxiety, different signs and symptoms. You'll also understand what is meant by the fight, flight, freeze responses, which are common responses in anxiety. And you'll also know some coping strategies and techniques. So that's what I hope you get out of the session. As Catherine said, this is really interactive, and I'd really welcome if any of you have strategies and techniques that you're more than welcome to share. I sometimes think that learning different techniques and borrowing from other people is a really great way to add resources to what I like to call the managing life toolbox. So why anxiety and Alström syndrome? Why are we looking at it? So Rare Minds did a piece of research, and they were really looking at what people with rare diseases felt and what were some of the common mental health concerns that people with a rare disease may face. So some of the things that they found that contributed to feelings of anxiety was uncertain prognosis and diagnosis, uncomfortable treatment pathways, changes in images of the self. So this could be because of a changing condition or a fluctuating condition. It can also be because of people's role within the family. So not only relationship dynamics, but also the pressure for making certain life choices within a family context. Also, the burden of being the patient expert. So sometimes with rare conditions that doctors don't know a lot about, having to explain that condition again and again, people with rare diseases often felt like that caused them anxiety. And also the burden of the emotional and physical parts of the condition. And certainly with some of the support I give, it's helping people navigate through uncertainty. There's a lot unknown about Alström syndrome. There's no direct treatment. There's no way of knowing exactly what you inherit with the syndrome. And I think that people that I certainly have spoken to have found that causes a significant amount of anxiety. So I should have maybe put this first, but hindsight is a great thing. What do we actually mean when we say anxiety? So anxiety is prolonged stress, worry or fear that interacts negatively in a person's day-to-day life. So this can stop you living in a way that you'd like to. It could give you unhealthy thoughts, feelings and behaviours. And just a little exercise that you can either do with me or not, it's completely up to you, but what I would like you to do is hold your hand so your palm is facing the sky, the ceiling. And then what I would like you to do is to make a fist, and I'd like you to clench that fist as hard as you possibly can. And you may not be able to see this on the camera, but I'm doing this now. I want you to make that fist as hard as you can, and then release. And whilst you're doing this, I'd like you to think of how does your hand feel? How does your hand feel while you're doing it? So my hand feels very tight. It feels, my nails are digging into my palm, which is causing me some discomfort. And then how does it feel when we release that fist? So my hand has stopped hurting because I've stopped digging the nails into my palm. It feels lighter. So if I'm going to stop talking just so you can really focus on that feeling for a moment. So make that fist and clench that fist as hard as you can, and then release your hand. Perfect. So I'm going to imagine that everyone's done that and they feel great now they've released that fist. So what are some facts and figures on anxiety? So these facts are all from 2020, which was when the last significant piece of worldwide research into anxiety figures was done. Figures are being updated all the time, but I wanted something that was worldwide, so we could look at it from a global perspective, because there's people here tonight from all different parts of the world. So there are approximately 62% of people worldwide that state that they have experienced some form of anxiety. Specific phobia disorder is the most common kind of anxiety. So that's, we maybe have a fear of birds or spiders, or so that's the most wide range form of anxiety that people say they've experienced. Women are more likely to have experienced anxiety than men, with around 63% of that demographic being made up of women. Since the pandemic, the amount of anxiety the world feels has increased by around 25%, which means that there is approximately 301 million people worldwide with anxiety, and about 5%, which is around 58 million of that statistic, are made up of children and young people. Like I said, phobia was the largest group of anxiety, with 90 million people in the USA saying that they experienced phobia disorders. So there's some of the statistics that kind of in the UK, 1 in 4 people will state that they have suffered some form of mental health issue, and out of that, 1 in 6 people will actually seek treatment for what they're experiencing. So now we're gonna, that was to give you a bit of background behind anxiety. So what are some of the symptoms of anxiety? What are some of the things that you might feel? So obviously part of anxiety, but not just exclusive to anxiety, were headaches, stomach aches, conditions such as irritable bowel syndrome, feeling nauseous, are all part of anxiety. You can also have things like feeling persistent worry or fear. You can be irritable. You can struggle to sleep, which could make you restless. You could have low self-esteem. You could have muscle irritations because of keeping your muscles bunched up all the time. And these are just some of the common signs that somebody is suffering with anxiety. And we'll go on in a moment to why you might feel some of those things. So what are some of the most common types of anxiety? So we've got agoraphobia, which is the fear of leaving the house. We have general anxiety disorder, which sometimes is referred to as GAD. I'm not a fan of this one because I think it makes general anxiety not sound as hard to live with as some of the other types, but I think GAD is a very common form of anxiety. We also have obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. Panic disorder, so that can be where somebody experiences panic attacks. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Separation anxiety, or social anxiety. So when I've done research, these are the most significant for, and also, as we said, when we looked at the statistics, we have phobias, which make up the biggest group of anxiety disorders faced by people worldwide. So like I said earlier, why are we looking at some of those symptoms of anxiety? Why do we sometimes feel nauseous? Why do we sometimes get heart palpitations and feel sick? So this brings in our fight, flight, or freeze. And these are three body responses to feeling anxious. And what happens is our brain registers we're in a situation that can be causing us anxiety. So it could be causing us fear, panic, or worry or stress. And the brain, we're not going to go into it massively scientifically because I'm not very good at science and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. So we're going to do it in my terms, which is very simple. So your brain, the back part of your brain sends a message to the front part of your brain telling it that you're in danger. And when it gives you this message, a response is the brain then triggers certain hormones and certain chemicals to make your body feel a certain way. And the overall kind of desire is to make your body ready to either fight the situation, run away from the situation, or freeze in the situation. And it does this by releasing hormones and chemicals such as adrenaline, cortisol, and dopamine. And this can cause an increase in blood flow to your body because, you know, if you're going to run, it wants to give the blood to your limbs so that you've got the speed and the power to run away. It also will try to empty your stomach, again, making you as light as possible. So this can be why people have conditions like irritable bowel syndrome or why people feel nauseous. Again, the hope is that the less, I suppose, weight you're carrying, the easier it's going to be to fight an opponent or run. This can also mean that when you've gone through the anxious situation, because there's been a build-up of all these hormones and chemicals, you have what I call, because different people call them different things, you have what is called a crash of all of these hormones, which can then leave you feeling tired. It can leave your muscles feeling like they've been through some kind of endurance. Your temperature can fluctuate. The reason that some people can feel nauseous or have heart palpitations in our body, there's two different entrances that adrenaline can go down. So it can either go into your stomach or it can go into your chest. There's gaps in the spine that help the hormone enter. So there's no science on where you feel it, but some people will feel things in their gut and some people will feel them in their chest. And usually what that is, it's a build-up of adrenaline, and it's entering into that point of your body. So this explains kind of those feelings. And the reason why I like to explain this is a lot of the time people think they're just they're what I call psychosomatic. So we think a certain way, so we feel anxious, and that's triggering a response in our body. And yes, it does, but I think sometimes understanding the science behind it can help people know that actually this isn't just a psychological process, this is a physical process that our body goes through. And hopefully by learning grounding techniques, by learning relaxation, you can help slow down the release of some of these hormones and chemicals, which in turn will help you feel more grounded. And for some people, that really does help give them peace of mind that this is a whole body response. This isn't just something you control in your mind. It takes more than that. So that is and then freeze. We've not really talked about freeze. So freeze is another way of protecting ourselves. So suppose if we think of that animal in the forest, another thing that they can do to protect themselves from predators is by just playing dead. And the hope is that the predators don't want dead meat and then leaves the thing alone. So sometimes our brain can actually make us freeze. And I think sometimes in a situation when you don't do anything, it's because your brain has frozen your processes to help try and protect you. As I've said, there are much more scientific descriptions of this process. I've chosen not to do one of those because I want to keep it simple. I want to just talk about the basic processes, and if you find anything interesting, then please do your own research. I can do more in-depth research for you, but I wanted to give everybody a basic understanding. So Next, we are going to go on to something called visualization. And for a lot of the techniques that we're going to use, I like to use visualization. And I suppose the question that some people may ask is, can we visualize if we are visually impaired? This isn't a process where you need to see. This is using our imagination. So what you need to do for a lot of these exercises, for some of these exercises, is think of a place where you feel safe. Sometimes it can be, what does that place look like? What are the smells in that place? What can you hear? We're employing all of our senses to imagine what that place feels like. It can be a place that you're familiar with. So for me, sometimes I imagine that I'm in a bedroom, and I imagine the comfort of that room. I imagine like some of the fabrics, some of the furniture in that room. Other times I like to imagine a place that is peaceful. So it's not a place that I know, but my place that I use in a lot of my visualizations is a beach, because I love being at the beach. So I'll imagine, what's the weather like? Is it a lovely sunny day? Is the sand warm? Can I hear the sea? You know, can I taste the salt in the air, and can I smell maybe some fish and chips cooking in the town, or can I hear the seagulls? So spend some time thinking of what a safe place for you feels like, what a peaceful, relaxing place for you feels like. This is something that we can talk about here today, or it's something that you can prepare in your own time. But the main thing is that this place is safe. If there's something that scares you about the place, so for example, I'm very scared of birds, so my beach has no seagulls. Because if I was to start imagining seagulls, I might then not feel safe on my beach. So if there are things that scare you about that safe area, one thing you can do is think of somewhere different. But if most things about that area you like, turn it into an area that's safe for you. So visualization is going to help you in some of the relaxing techniques that we do together. So what are some coping techniques? We're going to move on to those strategies. I'm just going to take a breath. So on the slides, we've got a list of, I think, 5 different scenarios, 5 different techniques that can help people facing anxiety. So I'm going to talk through each one, and then we'll have a little pause at the end of this section and just see if anyone has any questions, or if anyone has anything else that they can suggest. So the first bit, and all of these have names that I made up, so you may have heard of them in a different context. They might be called something different, but these are just what I call them. So the first one is the 4x4 breathing technique. And the idea of this technique is, when we are feeling anxious, we are in the emotional part of our brain, the part of our brain that tells us we are unsafe, that's telling us to protect ourselves. And the idea of 4x4 breathing, it helps move from your emotional brain into the logical part of your brain. And we're doing this by both breathing and by counting. So sometimes when you feel anxious, your breath will increase. Again, this is to kind of give you the fight or flight response. It's to help produce endorphins and adrenaline, so you can either power yourself out of there, or fight your adversary. So what we do is we breathe in, and as we're breathing in, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we hold that breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we breathe out for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we repeat this. So I often say to repeat this exercise for at least 5 times, but until you feel calm. And also, some people say, like, I can't hold for 4, that's too long, but you can really adapt this exercise into a breath that works for you. So if you can do 1, 2 and hold it for 1, 2, and then breathe out for 1, 2, well, it's still the same process. It may take you longer to reach that desired calmness, but it does still work. So really don't just, it's 4x4 because, well, if I'm perfectly honest, that's what I can manage doing the 4 breaths. But adapt it. You could maybe do 5 by 5, as long as the breaths are the same. And breath work can be really good at helping your body calm down. It helps balance all of these hormones. It helps get you breathing in a normal rhythm again, and it helps your emotional brain flit into the logical brain. Because it is, I've done this, it's very hard to cry or to panic when you're counting. And I think, when people are angry and people say, oh, count to 10, and to be fair, you think, how many plates could I throw in 10 seconds? Actually, when you're counting, it's using that logical part of your brain, so it's helping you maybe see things a little clearer. So I thought we could maybe just try it now, and you can do this with me or not, it's completely up to you. So I'd just like you to breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 2, 3, 4, and breathe in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, breathe out 2, 3, 4, and breathe in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, and breathe out 2, 3, 4. So if you joined in with me, thank you for joining in. And if not, I hope that you've seen how it can work in practice. So that's the 4x4 breathing technique. The next, well, again, you can use all of these techniques or one of them, it's totally up to you. So the next one is called the 4Ws. So you could either write on a piece of paper. I sometimes recommend to people you have like a mental health notebook to keep all of your thoughts and opinions in one place. So for this, we're asking ourselves 4 questions beginning with W. We're asking ourselves, what is it that I'm anxious about? Why am I anxious about it? What can I do about it? And when can I do this by? So what is it? We need to know what it is that's actually causing you the anxiety and stress first. So that's the what. Why? Well, actually, I think this is a really important step that people miss sometimes. So we're validating the feeling of worry. A lot of the time when we feel anxious, our immediate response is to say, don't be silly, you're being stupid, stop it. But actually, by asking, why am I anxious? There's usually some really valid reasons behind this. A good example I always used to use was in the pandemic, and people were scared of going outside. So that was what they were scared of. Why were they scared of it? Well, they didn't want to get ill, because then they might go into hospital. They didn't know what was going to happen. So, the why was really important. And I think you're worried and anxious anyway. If you're telling yourself off for feeling that way, you're beating yourself up twice. So you only need to feel bad once for the thought, and we can process that thought. So the third W is what can I do about it? What can you do about that anxious thought? So I'm going to use the pandemic example again, because I used it a lot in the early days of the 4Ws. So what could you do? Sometimes it was about things you can take out with you, things to make you feel safe, things to do when you get back to make sure that they were safe. Sometimes if the worry is more psychological, it could be, who do you need to talk to? Because I think talking is a big part of working through anxiety. When a thought's in your head, it can be really loud and really overwhelming. But when we talk about it, we're taking control of that thought. We're giving it a voice rather than allowing it to get bigger and bigger in our mind. So the what part is really important. And then the final W in the 4Ws is, when can I do this by? So it's sometimes good to have a date. So again, using the going out, when can I plan to go out? What date do I want to have tackled this by? I know this could be a bit harder if it's, a psychological worry, but still putting a date in, you could think like next month, that might be specific enough for you. But I think giving ourselves some responsibility in the situation is really important. I think sometimes with Alström syndrome in particular, we can feel out of control. We can feel like a lot of things just happen to us and we don't necessarily have the control over it. But I think by asking these 2 last W's, so what can I do and when can I do it by, is a really great way of giving you some agency back and giving you some responsibility in the situation. Because I often feel having responsibility makes the situation a lot better. And sometimes we feel like a lot of things we can't control, but there's always things that you can. You know, if writing's not your kind of, we'll call it MO, your modus operandi, then you could also do the 4Ws like as a voice note. Either sometimes we have what we call a safe person, so that's somebody you feel you can talk to about these issues. Sometimes as well, I know certainly on the iPhone there are voice memos, so I used to do the 4Ws as voice memos to myself, and then I'd set reminders with the fourth W with the when I was going to do stuff by, and that gave me a lot more agency and a lot more control in the situation. But really, to do all of these exercises, it's finding a way that resonates with you and that's not going to be overly difficult for you to do. We want it to be something that's simple, and you don't have to, oh gosh, no, writing's not for me, or I don't like speaking, I prefer writing it down. So really adapt these into a way that works. The next one that kind of follows on in a way from the 4Ws is confronting negative thoughts. So again, you can write this down, you can have a conversation with a trusted person or a conversation with yourself. And what you would do if you were writing, you'd have one side for and the next side for against. And on the one side, you write down everything that supports that anxious thought, which might sound a little bit counterintuitive, because it might look like you're supporting that negative thought, but actually when we get all of those thoughts out, I think it's validating our feeling. And I think anxiety should be validated. We all feel anxiety for a reason, and it's not about trying to squash that reason, it's about confronting it. And then on the against side, we write all the reasons against that negative thought, and we look for any evidence that goes against that anxious thought. We think of all of the positives, and sometimes at first maybe the for the thought is a bigger column than the against the thought, because it takes time to change our thinking. It takes time to switch from what we can call automatic negative thoughts to more positive ones. But you start doing this, you start confronting the thoughts, you start testing that, and it becomes easier and easier the more you do it. So confronting negative thoughts can be a really great way of confronting anxiety. The reason why I prefer the 4Ws to just confronting the thought is I think sometimes what we need to do is create new evidence. So humans are creatures that like patterns. So what our brain will do is it will look for a situation that reminds us of the situation that we feel anxious about, and we will look for what happened in that situation last time. So it might be, for example, something that I used to be very anxious about was going to the hospital, and my brain would look for past evidence of what has going to hospital been like, and I'd often find out new diagnoses, new treatment that I'd have to take, and that would be quite a scary, anxiety provoking process. So I had a lot of evidence in my this is a bad time for me column, and over time it did take time for me to put things in the against column and look for the positives, but shifting the focus was really good. Another technique is a grounding technique, and this is using our visualization again, so using our imagination again. And what we do is we either sit with our feet on the ground, with our feet touching the ground, or if we're lying down, we make sure we're comfortable, and we have our arms and legs kind of just by our sides. And what you do is you imagine roots coming up from the ground, and they start at your toes and then they wrap around your feet and your ankles, and they help tether you to the ground. And we're doing some nice even breathing whilst we're doing this. And we're just reminding ourselves that although we're feeling anxious, we're based in the physical. Our thoughts don't necessarily govern what happens. So by imagining the roots, it's almost like imagining you're a tree and a tether to the earth. Now that is a slightly more, I would call it a floaty technique. Some people really love visualization and they find that really helps them. It's not for everyone. Some people prefer a much more practical route, and we're all different. There is no right or wrong way. And the final technique that I'm going to talk about today is the relaxation or the body scanning technique. And this is a technique that I liked to do. I say liked because I don't do it so much anymore. but I like to do before I go to bed. And it's where you're checking in with your body, but two, you're telling your body, actually, I don't have to be alert anymore. I can power down to get ready for some rest or some relaxation. So again, you can do this sitting or lying down, and we start at our toes. We kind of bring our focus out of the room that we're in, and we start off at our toes, and we focus in to see how are they feeling. Are there any aches or pains? Is there anything going on there? Are there any sensations? And then we're bringing that awareness from our toes, through our feet, and up into our body. So you go from your toes to the top of your head. And again, we're doing some nice, deep, even breathing. We're telling ourselves, I suppose, the hormones and chemicals in our body, you don't need to produce this in such a high quantity. We don't need adrenaline to go to sleep. Our cortisol that's your stress hormone. We can rebalance, we can regenerate for the next day. So it's a really great way of powering your body down. And then the idea is, once you've gone through your body, we're breathing in and out again. And as we breathe in, we're gathering all of that emotion inside of us, all of that maybe negativity, all of that anger that we're sometimes carrying. And then as you breathe out, you're breathing all of that out. And then when you breathe in, you're breathing in calm, you're breathing in tranquility and peace. And then you breathe out all of those negative emotions that you're carrying. And that can really help send your brain the message that everything is safe, everything is okay. And I suppose, leading on from that, and we'll do a meditation at the end of this session. And that, again, it's looking at breath work. It's looking at what we're going to go on to in a second, which is mindfulness. So mindfulness is the practice of being in the moment. And I think sometimes with anxiety, we're using the past to help inform the future. And that can be scary sometimes. If we've faced a lot of adversity in our past, we can use that to inform what we think the future will be like. And that can cause us a lot of distress and a lot of anxiety. So mindfulness is the practice of living in the present. It's about bringing the awareness into your body, out of your surroundings and almost out of your thoughts, and just being in the present moment. There's lots of different ways to practice mindfulness. Some people like a mindfulness coach, some people develop an art of meditation. And meditation is something that I use a lot in my everyday life when I find I'm in my head a lot of the time, and I feel a lot of anxiety. For me, it's a lot of anxiety to be perfect and do the right thing, which I suppose we can never do, really. So doing a bit of mindfulness from time to time reminds me to live in the present moment and to just put faith in what is happening in this moment. And I think that could be really helpful sometimes with different health conditions. Sometimes just being not worrying, oh, what's my heart doing now? Will my eyesight get any worse? For me, it's that, will my hearing get anywhere? I worry about that a lot. But by being in the present, I'm allowed to I allow myself to take my focus away from those things and to enjoy that current moment. So we're going to have, hopefully, a little break from my voice. So I'd like to kind of open the floor to you guys and see if you guys have got any tips for managing anxiety.
No, this is wonderful, Melissa. All these technical tips and walking us through everything. I mean, with those breathing exercises, I was almost falling asleep because I was so relaxed.
Oh,
wonderful. Thank you.
Oh,
That
no
was
worries,
wonderful.
Marina. Do
Thank
you
you.
have any tips or anything for when you're feeling anxious? Does anything spring to mind that helps?
Well, I think with the breathing exercises that you're doing and the meditation, which I think is coming, are basically what I use. So, but I often use like recorded meditations on my phone as well. So I'm not sure, but what you're talking about is, I hear you. I think it's just so effective, and you have such a soothing voice. You're so
Thank you.
professional. So thank you.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, Marina, and thanks for sharing. But as well, something else that I haven't actually included, and I should really, is cortisol is one of the stress hormones. So we were talking about a buildup of this in anxiety, and they do often say a way to balance our cortisol is something sweet, and it's really interesting, I think, when we look at kind of traditions. So I think in those sort of for shock, people say, "Oh, have a sweet cup of tea," and I never really understood that. But actually it's because sugar helps balance cortisol, and that's definitely not saying, you know, eat loads of sweets will keep you not stressed, because I don't think that's the case. And they can be quite unhealthy. It's not a good habit to get into, like chocolate for stress, but I think it's not.
I like your thinking though, Melissa.
Well, they do say dark chocolate does help build up serotonin, which is our happiness hormone.
That is very true. Very true.
So in moderate, and there can be foods that help produce things like vitamin D that help us with feelings of anxiety. So that food can play a role in some of our feelings. But I think it's really interesting, actually. There's this, you know, sweetness balances our cortisol, our stress hormones, and actually it's looking at healthy ways to do that. So is it a sweetener? Is it maybe having some fruit, or, you know, something that's healthy that helps balance those levels, but isn't then going to spike our diabetes? So I think, Catherine, we only have a couple of slides left in my head.
Yeah, let me just share them again. We're up to the helpful apps one. Perfect. So if I just go into sharing.
Brilliant. And if I can just maybe have your help, Catherine, if I don't remember them all, because I've been trying to learn them all, but I'm like,
no, that's fine. Yeah, so we're on to the helpful apps now. Lovely. That we were looking at.
Lovely. And actually, these have all had the benefit of people with mental health that have used these apps, and they've all produced some kind of help. Because I never like to just say, oh yeah, this could help. I think that's really annoying. I think we should always have evidence that's based from what people say. Now, I found this out the other day. Mind, which is a mental health organisation in the UK, has an app library. So these are apps it did work with Screen Reader when I tried it, and they're apps for a range. They're not just mental health conditions. There's all kind of health conditions on there. They had like women's health, heart disease, diet. They had everything on there, and they're apps that Mind have tested to make sure that they're what they call ethical. So you can search whether you want to pay for an app or whether you want a free app, which I always do. They really give you like a really good breakdown of what good apps are for conditions. So I only found out about this very recently, but the Mind app library is a really great resource. But some other resources that can help people, and these are for a range of different mental health conditions. So we have things like Headspace, which is a really great app that does help with mental health. We have Audible, which does have a range of self-help books on there that you can listen to. But also, I do think maybe, obviously not a cure, but a good coping technique can sometimes be that escapism. Sometimes when my life's getting too much, I can slip into like the wizarding world with Harry Potter. Imagine I'm at Hogwarts, and it takes me away from my life a little bit. So we often sometimes I suggest to clients is sometimes having a safe book. So this is a book that we know inside out. So for me, it would be one of the Harry Potters. It's a book you don't really have to pay attention to. You're not waiting for the next plot twist. You know it inside out, and this is helping your brain ground all of these hormones, all of these chemicals that flow through our body when we feel anxious. So I can say have a safe book or have a safe chapter just to help ground you. So grounding really, I suppose I haven't explained that. Grounding really is helping our body feel normal. And there's all different levels, so normal and relaxed. And I know normal looks so different to all of us, and normal is a word that I absolutely do hate. So but yeah, so having a safe book, again, it helps our brain come down from that emotional side that it flips into when we feel anxious. It helps us be able to think more logically. So I do often really recommend having a safe book. Having a safe book can also really help for what we call sleep hygiene, and we're going to cover this more in another webinar. But if our brain has something we're familiar with, it's not going to fight staying awake as much. So having something familiar, again, that's got nothing you need to listen out for, can be really helpful with letting your mind shut down and feel comfortable and sleep. Also, we've got we have got apps on there for sleep. I think there's Slumbers on there. There's also an app called Self. There's Presently. There's Sleep Sounds, which is really lovely. Actually, you can build up a range of different soothing noises that help you sleep. Have I missed any off, Catherine?
I think you've gone through them all, actually. So there's Headspace, Audible, Self, Meditopia, I think was the one I wasn't sure about.
I've not tried that one personally. It was recommended.
Okay. But I think all the others you've said, Sleep Sounds, the Mindfulness app, Presently, and Slumber.
Perfect. Lovely.
And then the next one we're going to go on to is about meditation.
Lovely. And I do know meditation is something that some people really like and really enjoy. It was something up until last summer I absolutely hated, I'll be honest, because when I would meditate, my mind would think, but you could be doing this. Or why are you not worrying about this? You've stopped worrying about me. Please worry about me again. So at first I found it really hard. But what I thought I would introduce you guys to is a little meditation here. And before we do this, just like to say all the techniques, I've got voice recordings of all of the techniques. So I'm happy to send those to people. We're happy to put those onto the ASUK website as well, if that would be helpful. So the meditation we're going to do this evening is a blend of two meditations that I do. I'll say weekly. I started doing them daily, but I feel like as a result of doing them, my stress levels have really gone down. So I tend to do them weekly now, but we're going to do a breathwork meditation, and then we're going to interact that with a loving kindness meditation. So what I'd like you to do is just sit or lie comfortably, just whatever feels right for you. I would say close your eyes, but again, if you're not comfortable with that, then you need to do what makes you feel comfortable. And listen to my voice and repeat what I'm saying in your head. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be just focusing on certain phrases, and the hope is that we can then take our consciousness away from the environment around us and just purely focus on ourselves. Some people, I mean, when I say some people, my main guinea pig was my dad, and the love and kindness meditation he did chuckle through, but it's just because he found saying the things, the kind things to himself, he found uncomfortable. But as I said to him, the idea is the more you do it, the more comfortable with thinking these things you can feel. And one of the lines in the love and kindness meditation is, I am well in body and in mind. And I know, again, for someone with Alström syndrome, it might feel strange to say that, but the way I take it is, in this present moment, I am okay. It doesn't mean like I'm 100%, or like, I can see after this meditation. It's not about that for me. It's about in that moment when I'm relaxing, that I feel at ease. But again, you don't always have to have that line. If I'm not feeling well and I know I'm going to struggle thinking that one, I just take it out. So you can really tailor a meditation to giving yourself the messages that you need to hear. So we're going to give it a try. So what I'd like to do is to sit comfortably. And I would say, if you do find yourself falling asleep, like, that's okay. I have made people sleep before, mainly just talking at them about stuff that I found interesting and they didn't. But if you fall asleep, that's absolutely fine. And also, if you don't want to take part in this, that is fine as well. There's no pressure to take part. We're just here to give you a taste of some techniques, and like I said, some things work for some people, some things don't, and there is no right or wrong. And the last thing I want people to feel is because a technique doesn't work for you that you've failed, because no one's failed. If these techniques don't work for you, it has no impact on the person you are. It just means you've not found the right technique. And that could be working with a therapist, it could be working with a wellbeing coordinator such as myself to find out what is it that's going to help you relax, what is it that's going to make you feel grounded. So I'd like us all to sit comfortably. I'm going to shut my eyes for this just so I can do it authentically. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through our nose and then out through our mouth, and then in through your nose, a nice deep breath, and out through your mouth, and in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you're breathing deeply in and out, I'd like you to listen to my voice and repeat inside your mind. And as you breathe in, I want you to say to yourself, I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, I am breathing out. I am breathing in. And I am breathing out. I am breathing in. And I am breathing out. I am breathing in. And I am breathing out. I am breathing in. And I am breathing out. Now this time, as you breathe in, say to yourself, my breath is slow. And as you breathe out, my breath is deep. My breath is slow. 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 My breath is deep. This time, as you breathe in, my body is calm, and as you breathe out, my body is relaxed. My breath is calm. 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 My body is relaxed. This time, as we breathe in, I am in this moment. And as you breathe out, this is a wonderful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. I am in this moment. It is a beautiful moment. Now, still breathing deeply in and out, listen to my voice and repeat inside your mind. I am full of love and kindness. I am happy. I am safe. I am well in body and in mind. I am at peace. I can live with ease. I am full of love and kindness. I am happy. I am safe. I am well in body and in mind. I am at peace. I can live with ease. I am full of love and kindness. I am happy. I am safe. I am well in body and in mind. I am at peace. I can live with ease. I am full of love and kindness. I am happy. I am safe. I am well in body and in mind. I am at peace. I can live with ease. I am full of love and kindness. I am happy. I am safe. I am well in body and in mind. I am at peace. I can live with ease. So I still want you to breathe deeply in and out. and in and out. Now I want you to start bringing that awareness that you've had inside yourself back into the room that you're in. Is it hot or cold? Can you feel a breeze? What can you smell in the atmosphere? I want you to stretch out your fingers and your hands, wiggle your toes, and when you feel ready, open your eyes and join us back in the room. And that does bring me to the end of my presentation today. So I hope you found it all really useful, and I'm happy if anyone has any questions. But thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melissa. That was absolutely brilliant. And I think, as Marina has said, it was very, very relaxing. I think you probably put us all to sleep, very relaxed for the evening. I'm sure we'll all sleep well tonight.
Definitely. Can I just ask Melissa a question?
Of course, please do. This is kind of question time now as well. So please do, feel free.
The body scan that you did initially, do you base, or did you source from John Kabat-Zinn? I was just wondering, because I've done some body scans and I followed or I read about this chap called John Kabat-Zinn. So I don't know if, or if you've had some other source for.
So we learnt it initially when we were doing our counselling training, and we learnt it initially as a way to kind of power down from doing the sessions, and we learnt it as a really great way to kind of come back to yourself after you've had a day kind of in client work focusing on other people, because sometimes doing that you can take the focus away, you do take the focus away from yourself to focus on that person. So our tutor taught us it as a technique, but it's something that I suffered with really bad insomnia for a long time, to be fair. It's only been the past year that I've really got a really good handle on it, but it's something that I always use to kind of tell my body, actually, it's okay. We use the term hypervigilance a lot in my line of work anyway, and that responds to, our body always, it can be a state that people live if they're always ready for something to happen, and it can become a state that we stay in our minds. So when we're in hypervigilance, we're always producing those hormones and chemicals to try and keep us in fight or flight mode. And I feel like, I think as a person with a disability, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, is hypervigilance is a state we often do live in, and when you stay in that for a long period of time, it fires up the back brain. And saw a really good resource that said it's like a fire alarm where the batteries are faulty, so you have to teach your brain sometimes, well, I did anyway, I had to take the batteries out of my brain sometimes and tell my fire alarm that we don't need to be on all the time. And I think it's taken me a lot of practice to do that, but I think the body scan was a really great, and also a great way of saying, no, to be fair, like, my leg hurts, I'm in a bit of pain, and it taught me how to like validate what I was feeling as well.
Right. Yeah, really useful, that. And you have such a beautiful voice. And I don't know if I've done some of these relaxation programs. For example, you were talking about Audible, and they have Get Sleepy. And I could just imagine your voice on one of those apps. I really think you should consider, I don't know, collaborating with one of these apps for relaxation and meditation, and for breathing exercises, because your voice is so suited.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely. Sorry, Melissa.
No, you go, Catherine, you got.
Now, I was going to say it'd be lovely to do some we have done some, but it'd be lovely to continue some of those for the website, as Marina was saying, some of the sort of relaxation techniques and the breathing, and being able to have some of your relaxing voice as some little,
can definitely put together some like visualize it. There's lots.
That'd be lovely.
And there's we've not talked about them today because I think they're more I call them my floaty techniques. So
yes,
they're not when I say floaty, I mean ones that Dad's laughed at when I've tried them on him. I do like a really nice kind of ridding of negative energy. So I suppose I've got a recording of the body scan technique that I've done. All of the techniques we've talked about today. We have got sorry, life. Oh,
it's all right, Melissa. You're just dropping yourself everywhere. It's fine.
I am, but I don't know where my phone has fallen.
Oh, bless you. We can hear you. That's all that matters. We can hear you, which is absolutely fine. But I remember when I did my counselling training, we did the body scan as well. And I found it so useful, and I still use it to this day. And sometimes it's really good. We don't often sometimes realise where we're holding tension. I think when we're sometimes anxious, or we've had quite a stressful day, sometimes we don't realise until we actually relax down and actually think about all the different areas in our body and do that body scan. You sometimes can then pick up some of that tension and those areas that you wouldn't have picked up ordinarily. So it is a lovely one to do. But I think what's been really prominent today is, and from what you've been saying as well, and what we've all been saying, is there's different techniques for different people. And I think that's what is lovely, is you've brought in lots of different techniques today and little snippets. And then I think what would be lovely is doing some more of that work on the website for people to be able to have a look, familiarise themselves with, because we're quite used to this talk and the way we're talking about it and using some of these techniques. But I'm sure lots of people out there have probably never heard of a lot of these techniques. So it's trying to introduce those in a lovely way, like you do, and having some of those on the website so people can have a little exploration with them and decide which ones actually work for them, which I think would be a lovely way going forward.
And maybe even like a suggestion box, because I personally think like most of the things I do are things that I've stolen from other people, things that people have maybe done with me that have really like hit home. And like the body scanner I find really great to do in, when you're having one of those long MRI scans. I do that sometimes, and I couldn't do an MRI. I used to have like MRI PTSD, like, well, I couldn't do them without crying. I'd feel very panicky. I'd be like, oh, what about the miners in the war? And they were underground and I'm underground. I just get into a mind spin, and they were horrible. And then when I learned the body scan, I'd think, right, start my toes, move my consciousness. And the last MRI I did, I didn't actually cry in it, which I was like, yay. I felt like I'd really because the anxiety, it affected me in a massive way.
Of course.
But I think, and it'd be great to have a suggestion box of things that people can maybe write in with stuff that they do. Because I think as well, like mental health, having these conversations, it's not like, I'm an expert. I'm not an expert. I'm just putting together a load of ideas and having that conversation. And I think sometimes those simple things, like stroking, we've not talked about it today because I couldn't think of how to do it. But, stroking ourselves, self-soothing, playing with our hair, they're all things that we do when we're anxious to self-soothe. They're all things like, someone's giving you a back tickle or something. It's a lovely way of de-stressing. But I think sometimes there's some real human ways that, like, you don't have to be a therapist to know. And I think sharing so important. No one's alone. We all feel anxious, whether we have anxiety as a debilitating condition, or we have situational anxiety. It impacts us all.
Definitely. I think, as you say, it's kind of those little top tips, isn't it, that we may never have thought of, which can really help us get through some of those tricky situations, or more of the sort of day-to-day, or the debilitating condition that we might have of anxiety. So there's lots within that, isn't there, that we could share, and as you say, get some top tips from other people as well, and how things have helped them move forward.
Definitely. Really useful. I think it would be really useful if you could share all of that on your website. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you, Marina. And thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Trevor, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. Thank you everyone who's joined us today. And like we say, we're developing that top tips and fact sheet that will definitely be going on the website. So we'll include everything on that we've spoken about tonight. In case nobody wants to ever re-listen to this back again, we've got loads of different formats and different ways you can access everything. So thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you ever so much, everyone. And we'll bring everything together in the recording and some top tips. And I'll pop some links out for you for when it's live on the website. Sorry, Melissa.
No, I was just going to say, and as well, you know, if there's any feedback, anything that you think actually that bored me, or I'd have liked there to have been more of this, then please, you know, either email myself or email Catherine, because I'm only as good as my feedback. You know, I want the sessions to be what people are interested in. I want them to have the right level for everybody. So if you do have any feedback, there's anything that you'd like to have been done differently, I'm not saying better, because, you know, like that's a concept we can't measure necessarily, but anything you'd like to be done differently for a future session, or any topics you'd be interested in.
Yeah, I was just about to say, any topics, anything you fancy that you're thinking, actually, I would really love to hear a bit more about, then please do let us know. Fabulous. Well, thank you ever so much, everyone, for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you at the next one. We try and do it on the Thursday, the last Thursday of the month, depending. I think the last few Thursdays have always clashed with something. So we are, that's what we aim for, don't we, Melissa? And then we will put out some dates for when the next ones are going to be. So we look forward to seeing you both at the next one.
Thank you, Melissa. Well done.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Trevor.
you. Lovely
Thanks,
to
Marina.
see you, Trevor. Lovely to see you, Marina. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.